So thank you all for being here. The very first thing we'll do is call our meeting to order. And so we have agenda packets that are located here. They were also emailed out to everybody. So if you need one, we can always grab a couple of agenda packets from back there. We'll start with our roll call. And so I'll just go through this very directly. And please stay present as we go through. Cameo Flood.
Here.
Susan Mace. Susan is not here today. I didn't hear from her, so she may be joining shortly. Kathy Nygaard.
Here.
Christina Barsky.
Here.
Amber Schaefer. I did not hear from Amber either. She may be joining shortly as well. Travis Hoffman.
I'm here.
Travis is here. D'Artagnan. D'Artagnan, I'm not certain quite how I'd say your last name.
It's Captain, and I'm present.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, D'Artagnan. Jack Ring.
Here.
Todd Mowbray. Todd did say that he was traveling and he might try and catch us at the end of the meeting. I'm not certain we're going to go very long today with everything on the agenda. Marilyn Ryan's the alternate. And I didn't hear from Marilyn. I'm not certain if she might be joining later. Rebecca Dawson.
Here.
And then Josh Slotnick is not available today. I'm Bradley Seaman. I'm the election administrator. I do a lot of work keeping track of times. And with this, we do have a quorum. So we're ready to kind of proceed forward for today. And I'll hand it over to Christina for the next item, approval of agenda.
Thanks, Bradley. So Bradley sent out the agenda, like you mentioned, was that yesterday?
Yeah, so the final went out on Friday and then I just
Okay,
did a couple of
thank you.
updates to
Yeah.
everybody.
What is time? We need to approve the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Excellent, thank you. So we have an agenda. The next item is the approval of our minutes. As you know, like Bradley mentioned, we're recording, so our minutes are recorded. So it's not like we're nitpicking about who said what or the right verb to use somewhere. But we do need to approve the recorded minutes. I don't know if folks had a chance to check them out with the link that Bradley sent. It's a formality at this point, I would say. Is there a motion to read? Second?
Second.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Excellent. The next item on our agenda is public comment for items not included on the agenda.
We don't have any members of the public online or in person for this, so no need to go too long. We can kind of check that one off pretty quickly.
I like the speed.
At this rate, guys, we're going to be freeing up a little time this afternoon.
All right, under old business, we have a few items. The first are bylaws and thinking through EAC roles. I think that Bradley had shared with us that terms, I think, expire usually in February. And so we have a couple of items to talk about here. Bradley, do you want me to turn it over to you to talk about how we're thinking about these?
Yeah, I'll kind of just jump right in if that's okay. Jumping in on our bylaw changes that we have here. We had a couple, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything because I was doing a little bit of discussion. We'd had two big areas that were discussed. The first one came up from the student member. When we were running through this, we just interviewed with D'Artagnan. We hadn't yet had an appointment made, so I was really struggling to not go too far down that road. But what we ran into with the student member is that many of the people who fill that join on their senior year. And then they graduate. And then the time of that term, running from February through till the end of January, was really tough because you'd either be getting in people who were on their last semester or somebody who was maybe moving or going someplace else for the summer. So during the meeting, I believe it was Commissioner Slotnick and the committee that had said, let's explore taking a look at both incentivizing that position in some capacity and making it a little bit easier to fill and a little bit more continuity. So with this, I had grabbed our bylaws and I took a stab at it and sent it out for everybody so we could have something to kind of look at how that change would go. One of the big items that we had put in here was we wanted to state that if somebody was serving on the committee, and let me pull this up and share my screen really quick so that it's available for everyone too. There we go. So I took a stab at this pretty basic. This is a starting point for us. We can adjust the language, we can adjust term dates. What we wanted to do is state that the student member is a student enrolled at the University of Montana or other post-secondary education institute. When the EAC added the student-specific position, there was a lot of discussion about who this should be for and not limiting it so close that it was only for the University of Montana. So it does state that they need to be enrolled in the post-secondary education in the county, at least on a half-term basis. I thought if we added when they originally apply, that would allow somebody who may be a junior at the university who's graduating to finish that term. Where I have loved having a student member on the EAC is for outreach and connections. I'm currently going to the university. I'm taking a break for this next year, but I'm really detached. I couldn't tell you if it makes more sense to have this event happen at the university center on the first floor or the third floor. And so this can be an excellent opportunity for us to have somebody at the university familiar with this to share information and help us with some of the bigger projects we do. And the bigger projects that we do are, we've moved a university polling place. It took over for the other polling place, which was the Senior Citizen Center. Senior Citizen Center was located less than a mile away from the university. And it took over for Paxton Elementary School. Almost every single school district 1 elementary school is no longer a polling place. And this was due to the concerns between safety and security for students and open access for voters. So what we were able to do is work with the university, utilize the James E. Todd building, which is the back of the university center, secure parking, and have a spot that doesn't put anybody at risk of interference with students who may be going to that student. We don't want to be a safety concern for the schools. And it allows us to maximize that staffing. What was happening is during every June election, the university served only students who were registered at the university. Well, that's right when school ends. And so everybody had left. Last June, we had 2 voters vote at the university center. Now what we're able to do is get a location that's got good parking, pull away from the elementary school, and utilize them all, keep it in one location and maximize that staffing. So as we saw this is where I love that student member. Hey, we need to help advertise this. Where are we missing? So that somebody can know and see this signage really well where to go to. A lot of it has been based off of that. However, post-secondary education, one of the items that Commissioner Slotnick had mentioned was potentially working to include a internship or some sort of college credit. Well, if a student was attending post-secondary education at the cosmetology school or the school of massage, I can't necessarily say, yes, we can also work to give you an internship that will apply for your school credit. So I wasn't able to build that into this idea of helping incentivize. But what we thought is maybe we could have more continuity, still have some better familiarity than my decades-old remembrance of what it's like at the university, and have a continuity of membership in that student role. The other part of that is February is not a great time to be recruiting students. As those terms expire, also that's the middle of that spring semester. And guess what? Many of them are actively looking at that spring semester and potentially graduate. So lining it better with the fall semester, when people come and are more likely to be there for 2 semesters in a row, really helps with that. Here's where I struggle. The dates of August 31st and September 1st are not great. That's D'Artagnan, correct me if I'm wrong. That's before the university starts their fall semester.
Nope, we start at the end of August.
At the end of August. What my big concern is, I wanted to have time to recruit through the university, through other areas, other areas through any groups that were out there. And not having too close, hey Susan. For those of you online, we just had Susan come in, and so she's joining us right now. It felt a little bit early in that semester to have a good recruitment period. The later we go, the closer we get to a potential federal general election. So figuring out a good time frame for these dates and start times is what I put together here to help have a more robust discussion around. I think where we've been has had unique challenges. I think there'll be some unique challenges with moving it to the beginning of the semester, and it does put one position on a different term schedule than the others. I feel confident in our ability to help track those terms and recruit and make sure that they get filled. I don't know that August 31st is the best start time, and I wanted to have that be a broader discussion amongst us all.
I just looked up the start date for 24 on Monday, August 26th. We always start before Labor Day and then have Labor Day off. It's a strange schedule. This semester we start on Thursday.
But the first meeting that we would have after that would probably be in October, right?
Yeah, so that meeting is our October meeting, and so we follow that set schedule. Here's where we're running into at that point in time. I plan on continuing forward with very similar outreach, a little bit different because of the new polling location. But one of our heaviest areas of same-day voter registration has been university students. When I first started, we had a practice of holding satellite office events in Sealy Lake, in Frenchtown, and at the University of Montana, trying to cover rural areas where it's hard to get into, and being really focused that if the main utilizers of same-day registration are at the university, can we have that office there and eliminate some of that pressure on election day, drop those wait times down? I want to keep all of that going. Everything we've been doing for outreach has proven to be beneficial. So we'll still have a plan, we'll still have good information, but every 3 years, we'll have a little bit of a rotation that takes place in this time frame. I don't know. And really, I was taking a good stab at, hey, this is a good starting point, and let's talk.
What about April 1? Because they've already started spring semester, they're in their group, it's not finals time yet. But then we have the ability for them to attend our summer meeting online or virtually. But then we can start working with that person and they're on board, they're running, they're established in time for our fall elections.
You know, like, someone who is not even a freshman yet isn't going to be participating anyway. And so if they kind of have an intro in the spring, maybe they actually have more to bring to the table by the time the fall election comes around. Like the June elections would be like practice.
What is magic about the 1st of February for the rest of us?
Just a standard time frame that was
What
in our
would
bylaws.
happen if everybody started their term on April 1, for instance?
I
There
think
wouldn't be any of this, his term expires next week, but hers doesn't expire till 3 months from now. I mean, I don't see no magic about February.
Okay, so I feel like the committee is very interested in the elections, and if we start the terms in February, we have one meeting before the June primaries. And, you know, I don't know, like this one, I was really interested in because of the redistricting for the precincts, which is very important for the primaries. So I don't know if one meeting is enough. And, you know, I guess I haven't done enough with the committee to really understand where we can provide good input and when to do that. So that would be my issue with starting in February, is just because the year's going primary.
currently, here's what we've been seeing, just to give you guys sorry, words are tough for me today. As we go through this, I don't want to get too far, but in new business, we'll talk about expiring terms and new terms. Uniquely for this run through, everybody whose term is expiring has asked to continue forward. That will not always be the case. We will hit a term limit on this. But we are gaining a lot of continuity based off of the fact that people are saying, yes, we're gaining some great traction on some bigger projects, and we're getting to this spot where people are feeling like they can really start to provide that input, gain that perspective. And so we would only have maximum, this is our big year, and there's 4 that roll off this year. This would be the biggest that we would have. However, most of those positions would not always be that they're on the same number of terms. So where the next time Christina's position would be up for election, that would be your 3rd term, your final term, but you're on that same term schedule, and this is your full 1st term, Susan. So you wouldn't be on that same rollout time, and we would see that ability to pull through. Here's the other thing I'm thinking about. Unfortunately, I'm not positive how this works, but I can get that information. I do believe almost every board in Missoula County expires on January 31st and starts on the February 1st. We partner so closely with the Board of County Commissioners staff to recruit and fill these. We're already discussing making a new term. I don't know how hard it would be to make all of the terms fall on that timeline, but it's something that I would want to explore. That being said, I like the idea of not having different terms amongst our committee. I just don't want to nominate a team that has a monumental task of coordinating 200 and some volunteer boards to say this one's now different. Unless there's a good reason for that. And, keeping this forward, I don't know which of these will be more beneficial. Allowing people to complete their full term or the start time on that term.
Thank you. And at the start and end at the same time, like not be staggered.
Still staggered terms, but changing the last day so that they all aligned. And that was the recommendation.
It's just,
Yeah, well, and also I just thought too, maybe like the February, another reason because for the February 1st one is, on the years that we have trainings, they can go.
Yeah.
They'll be on board for that.
D'Artagnan, not to put you on the spot, brand new here helping out. What's your thoughts as newly selected student member? Does April 1st make sense, or would it be easier in the fall? Or I'm just exploring ideas. There's no right or wrong answers.
I don't necessarily think that April 1st is a bad date, but I do share some of the concerns about potentially not being able to kind of fully fill out both semesters. If you shoot for getting people who are earlier on in their college career, it's not really that big of an issue because, it's not like they're immediately going to graduate. But otherwise, I mean, it is just kind of a rough time. I don't know. I'm very in between. Personally, I find it very difficult to choose because I think it's convenient in a lot of ways and inconvenient in some other ways. Like I said, it might not allow people to finish out their full term if they are a senior this year. But on the other hand, it would give people who, may, like myself, who would be a freshman in college and time to actually experience college before standing on as a representative for all college students on the board. So I can see where it is convenient in a lot of different ways. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that makes a lot of sense. The other aspect of that is if we have multiple different applicants and we know that one applicant is graduating, they send through and they say, I'm in my senior semester, I'm in political science, and I'm going to XYZ next semester for my first internship. if we have multiple different applicants, that's one of the decisions that the commissioners can really use to help balance this out and make sure we can gain that continuity. There may be times we don't. And just having somebody who can fill that position for that time may not hurt. There's been, I think, 3 or 4 meetings where we haven't had a student rep. Also, a little history on this, we have had student reps who are in their senior year. We have had student reps who are doing their internship in DC and still participate. As we go for this, when we had the discussions as the advisory committee about adding this, it was a good connection to the community, but also not necessarily supposed to be something that was university specific. In my role, I've now worked with many of the people at the university in this exact same capacity for 8 years. And so we've gained a little bit of continuity in that. As we look at this position, the big question comes in, what's the best idea to propose to the Board of County Commissioners? So remember, everything we go through with the committee is a proposal, a recommendation to myself or the commissioners. This one's hopefully a slam dunk because it came from Commissioner Slotnick, but would still be representing and making a proposal. There's a lot of different options as to what we can do. I was trying to give a quick idea of something that would be a starting point for this. And honestly, what I think is, I don't know that we need both changes at the same time. I can guarantee the commission does not want to see bylaw changes come through piecemeal and be heard every time there's an EAC meeting. But we can take a look at these different bylaws and we can say, what's going to be the most helpful for this position moving forward now? I thought originally when I wrote this, that this was the easiest way to do it. Add that one sentence here that says when you are applying that you must be enrolled. Then looking at the term, I don't know if the worst case scenario would be that we have a vacancy for one meeting and we fill it, just like we did with D'Artagnan. I get a little bit more hesitant on saying that these changes to our meeting dates should be here, or I'm sorry, our term expiration and term start date should be here. And then not loving it and proposing another change. I don't know. It's a tough one to come through.
I mean,
And
just to summarize, and I feel like I really agree with you there. If there's a vacancy, we get somebody whenever it comes up. And then their term ends like whenever our term ends. And if they want to extend it, like the rest of us, they extend it
I mean,
and just keep it simple and just wait until there's a vacancy. Yeah. Is that what you were getting at?
that's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm getting at, because here's what I'm thinking. We're muddying the waters more than I intended. My goal with this is accomplish what we were looking at, gain more continuity. And I think we hit that with the first change by adding when they apply for the position. When we change those start dates, I am cautious that we're not going to love it. We're going to want to change it. It may not work the greatest. And rather than tackling that and then proposing another change, I think we might be able to accomplish the intent of what Commissioner Slotnick was putting forward with just that first change. And that's what I'm kind of getting at. And I'm fully aware that I wrote that and sent that to you all as well. But as we talk it through, that's my concern. And this is the sort of discussion that I was hoping we could have. My take right now, and here, my goal with the EAC is to be your secretary, and I'm trying to help guide things a little bit. There's a lot of different ideas of what we can do. We've talked about bylaw changes, we presented bylaw changes, and we can make a vote on any portion of any bylaw changes that we've discussed with that student position. So that could be, thanks for your hard work on this, Bradley. We would like to vote only for that first change and not for the second change, or just the second change, or changing the dates in there. But I think it would be helpful for us with this to come forward with some vote. And then we can say, Commissioner Slotnick, we heard you, we approached this, and we think this will be a great step in going forward. And I'm not jumping to schedule a commissioners meeting to make these bylaw changes. because of potential changes that we might make and combine together. I don't want to put forward a change and then another change in a week. So we can vote on this and then we can say, hey, we want to meet at the next meeting and talk about this too. And then we can, during the summer, make those changes because right now we have somebody who's fulfilling that position. D'Artagnan, I'm cheating just a little bit. I believe you're in through 2025. And so there's no need to rush into this at this current time. What it does do, making that change, is that if D'Artagnan decides I'm going to take a year off, I know a guy who did that. You could take that year off and continue to serve in this position. And then that just kind of equates this a lot more with like the positions for a central committee. You serve that term unless there's another change.
I like the idea of when they apply for the position being added to the student member. In terms of paperwork, I think there is food for thought in terms of like, do we want to, is this a change that has to be made immediately or do we want to think about it? I'd be curious as D'Artagnan's spends more time on the committee for his insight on this and what he thinks, what he's discovering. And I don't want to make double work for the commission. I guess that's sort of where my brain is at, but I also don't want to be in the position where we might lose a great person if we're not making this minor adjustment. I don't know. Does that make sense?
So, and I think that's a great area to bring up. This doesn't have to be decided on today. Like this aspect has been kind of presented. We can chew on this a little more. A lot of this was my schedule around the holidays. Forgive me all. As I came back in and I was like, yeah, I was supposed to send those bylaw changes. Let's get those out right now. As this comes forward, we could take this, we could chew on this a little bit longer and we can see, because I know that there's been discussion of other changes and we can do it as one slate, make one vote. We don't need to rush into any of these changes with selecting somebody and putting them in. My big goal was to make sure that when I said, yes, Commissioner Slotnick, I will work on these updates and changes, we got it for this meeting. So I guess that does add, there's always the potential to say that this can remain as old business and we can discuss it offline, vote on it at the next meeting, or decide that, hey, this isn't something we need to pursue.
I mean, I think we can wait, but
As for point of clarity, just about the first change,
Yeah.
when they apply for the position, so that change in one respect is designed to say a senior applies for the position, can say they can finish out their term post graduation, essentially. Okay,
Exactly.
yeah. I think that's a very common sense change. Maybe the second one makes a little less sense with the term dates because it just is a more complicated change. We can think on that one more, but the first one makes sense to me.
And there is a potential that we just decide, hey, that makes sense. Let's go with this. Let's vote that forward and we'll turn that back around to the commissioners. We don't necessarily have to turn around next week and say, we are going to propose this bylaw change. What we've done is made a recommendation to me and the commission that for the student position, we think it's a great idea to say that they need to be enrolled when they apply. We support this bylaw change. And as we, the board, county commissioner, staff, and myself get the chance to propose it, we can keep everybody apprised. And we can also hold that through as we go through these next meetings. If we want to look at other changes, we can rediscuss a little bit more and we can still knock one of these out and say, yes, we've all come together. We've all given up a couple hours out of our Tuesday and we're moving forward on the project. You'll notice that I really want to accomplish this change. That being said, there's not a rush into it. And I don't want to be pushing too much to guide you all.
Let me pause. I think that what I heard you say is that we could decide, for instance, if we wanted to make a proposal to have a vote on when they apply for the position to be a change that we agree to or vote on. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that means tomorrow you're emailing the county commissioners and saying, hey, here's our first one, but there might be more coming your way.
Yeah, what that means is that we would put that together.
Right.
Well, after every meeting, I try and follow up with the commissioners if we don't have staff here and say, this is what we talked about and where we went. And we can say, yeah, we tackled that student member. No, we didn't assign a internship and college credit program because that might not apply. But we did make it so that we can add continuity so that if D'Artagnan takes a gap year next year and wants to keep going forward and then help out in the midterm, we've got a person filling that spot. And they go all the way through until that expiring term.
Okay.
Feel like I keep it really confused.
Are there other points of discussion that people would like to have? I think that where we're at as a group is thinking about these maybe as two different components that don't have to be a slate. So if people wanted to move forward with addition of when they apply to the position 2.6 on the bylaws for a student member, that we could entertain a motion to do so. Am I correct that that's sort of where we are in this conversation?
Yes, so we don't have to talk about it next time.
Yes.
D'Artagnan and Travis, I just want to make sure we catch you both as well.
You're picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah,
No,
I
I-
agree.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think it was a good discussion. I mean, the only thing that I would maybe suggest is a language change. Instead of saying when they apply for the position, maybe say at time of application.
I am 100% on board with that change. I'll mark it out here. It'll be part of the meeting minutes.
Okay.
And then you guys will all see it reflected as we go forward and send out any other proposed changes to make sure I have that correct at the time of their application.
Just at time of application.
You want a motion to that effect?
Well, that would be great.
So moved.
Okay, so the motion that we have is to, you wrote this down, thank you. To change, 0.6 in the bylaws under the student member position. The new language that's proposed is at time of application. So student member, parentheses, a student enrolled at the University of Montana or other post-secondary education institution in Missoula County on at least a half-time basis at time of application. So we're entertaining a motion.
Second.
All right, so second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Congratulations. Well done, team. Cross that one off the list.
Okay, other changes. There's a potential that I've missed a few emails on a couple of the other changes and getting those drafted and ready to go. Here's how I want to go forward with this, if that works for the committee. I'd love to follow up via a couple of emails and state, hey, we've got this ready. They are in old business right now. And we had some discussions during the last meeting about the elimination of partisan positions. This got lost in the time off, and I know I've had a few emails coming back and forth on this. My goal originally was to provide this out in November, have presented mirroring changes come from somebody on the committee. I'd love to work with anybody who's interested in that to help draft them out over the next few days. I will have time next week.
I kind of feel like we did that.
Got them ready to go.
Well, Rebecca made the suggestion and I mirrored her in an email the next day.
I feel like it's been done.
Let me pull it up really quick, guys, if you don't mind. And I will just present it. And if that's something we're interested in proceeding forward with, I don't need us to revisit.
I don't know if
love
we
it.
discussed it though in the committee for sure. I don't know.
We
if
could talk,
ever discussed it.
Be great. Do you want to give us like a verbal sort of back and forth with the emails conveyed to bring us back up to?
The idea being that both Republican and Democratic Central Committees have
Mhm.
a representative and an alternate here. The other parties that are trying to get a foothold in Missoula do not also have that, and I know that part of that is lack of communication, that they haven't responded to it. But I don't think that the representation is equal or necessary, and I think it would be better to have those positions become at-large positions. Just to open it up to more community members.
And I said, I totally agree with that.
Yep. And I just pulled it up and got it available for everybody. My apologies. Let me make sure it's shared with everybody online as well.
Is there discussion that folks want to have around this? Thank you.
I think I said it better in person than I did.
Yeah. I'm following exactly what you're saying.
Discussion, what? And it'd be helpful for me, just like the history of when the partisan positions were created, like how long they've been around. Just knowing like how we got to where we are.
Absolutely. The partisan positions in this were created at the origin of the Election Advisory Committee. Now, this gets a little bit fuzzy. The Election Advisory Committee existed long before I was ever employed with the county, and it transferred from an advisory committee as the position of election administrator was separated from the clerk and recorder to the elections administrator. The advisory committee became what you guys know it as now. And it became this different entity that had these partisan positions, and that started for sure in 2015. It was likely in before that, but I don't have that information and I'd have to pull that. But in this capacity of the advisory committee, it did exist upon that creation. And the idea was to ensure that we were providing information to all different groups and entities at the same time. That's doable in a lot of different ways.
Can I add to that? My understanding is that when the county decided to take the elections off of an elected official, which is the county clerk, and put it into an appointed position, they didn't want, we lost the direct voters' impact on the person, so you're the clerk and I don't like how you're running the elections, I get to vote you out of office, right? Now they don't have that, and so it kind of falls on the county commission to be listening to the voice of the voters when it comes to the elections. So when they put an appointed person in, then we're the ones now that are supposed to be making sure that the county commission hears about voters' concerns with the way the elections are run. So we're like overseeing Brad.
So our meetings are public. The public is always welcomed, and both committee chairs, organized committee chairs, are included on all of the emails, so they are made aware of what's happening and when meetings are happening. So I feel like the communication to the organizations is already in place, and so we're holding two positions hostage that could be a public position because those organizations already are being written in on everything that's happening here.
Would that change with this? Like, would the committee chairs not be a part of that communication because they don't have seats?
I'm not proposing that change happen at all. I don't know if that's required of you or if that's a courtesy, but I think that should continue either way.
That is definitely not required. What was happening was we wanted to make sure that all of the committee chairs were knowledgeable about vacancies, appointments, what was happening. Because the idea with the committee representative is kind of that liaison to be able to share back and forth. And what in the past had happened is that there would be a communication breakdown. So when I started in 2020, we changed a couple of things. And one of the first things we changed was we included all of the central committee chairs, as well as a couple of other representatives from the county on the emails to make sure that you'll see our communications director on these emails so that all of this information can be shared. I love that capacity. This is where I share information first. When we talk about redistricting, this was the first way of sharing that information. And I share it here because it goes out to the advisory committee as well as both central committees at the same time. I like including that. I like to spread, it's on our website, it's posted, it's noticed, but I don't think that there's a reason that the two largest groups that work in parallel, central committees, should be excluded from knowing about what these plans are. I mean, specifically when we get to the EA update, the biggest hit on this tends to be for central committees and polling place voters, and this is great information to share at the same time. So that's really where it comes from, and I always want to point out that this is considered an advisory, not a supervisory board, with a slight difference. No, that's okay, but it actually impacted the change in another county. They really wanted a supervisory board. And when they were looking at switching to an appointed election administrator, many groups wanted a supervisory board, not an advisory board. And they were like, just like in Missoula County. And we had to clarify that, no, we're making recommendations to myself and the commission. Yes, I'm very receptive to those recommendations. But it is still recommendations, noting that by law changes any of this, the commission could say, thank you very much for that recommendation.
No.
Yeah. So yes, they've been here, they've been present. I think we can continue to share information in a very great way. I think that that's something I've really prided myself on with serving as the elections administrator. 100% transparency, open tour processes, public meetings that are posted and noticed, making sure that it's a transparent process. I don't expect to change any of that. What this does through, forgive me, I'm jumping back and forth and I'm sharing this with everybody. There's two different sections. The student member becoming at large, as well as the central committee members becoming at large. I am more than happy to jump in. I can pull up a copy of these bylaws, write up some proposed changes during this meeting, and we can make a proposed change and a recommendation. Rebecca, I feel like I dropped the ball on you. So, you know, and I'm happy to jump in and do that because I feel like that would work and apply and we can dig in. I love seeing the Jack's got like the full set of bylaws ready to go there because what it would do is it would shuffle those positions to being at-large positions and at-large alternates.
In your reasoning, in the same way that you include the central committee chairman, would you kind of try and cultivate reaching out to other?
I'm sorry, I have that discussion with Bradley because I've helped in the midst of all of these emails, is that the elections office has reached out to other parties that are trying or either have a small footprint or are trying to grow in Missoula County and you have not received really any communication back on inviting them to this process.
Any group that has an established central committee has been invited to be a part of this process. And I believe it was 2016 or 2018, the Libertarian Central Committee organized and formed a central committee. The Libertarian Party organized and formed a central committee here. We reached out to them, but we've never been able to confirm and be able to include that as we grow more parties, that could become more burdensome. Right now, we're structured in a way that keeps us balanced so that we have an odd number of members. If we added in, we've always talked about, yes, if we added a libertarian member, we would also need another at-large member to keep us at an odd number.
Oh, I didn't mean, for the
For a position.
I just meant for sharing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, are you already, sounds like.
I haven't
doing
talked to
some
them in a while,
outreach too,
and
so-
I'll see if I can connect again. To be honest, I don't think I've touched base with them for the last year. I know we reached out a lot during candidate filing, and candidate filing period for precinct committee men and women starts in 2 days.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna reach back out and see if we can make that connection. It was pretty limited on the amount of communication.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the positions on the committee, but I'd rather have them be non-commissioned.
I liked your reasoning in the email saying that, you know, the work is nonpartisan. And so it seems like the organization of our advisory group could follow suit in supporting that.
Well, my thought, having been active in a central committee, is, it's very simple to have a subcommittee in the committee, and like, you guys are in charge of attending the EAC meetings,
Right.
as a member of the public, bring us a report back. They don't need to be voting members to be able to report what's happening.
Totally.
And my understanding in previous leadership roles within at least the Republican Central Committee is a pretty open chain or communication.
Mhm.
Oh, and continuing forward,
Okay.
we try to maintain amazing communication with the central committees because so much works in parallel.
Yeah.
We've already reached out around EAC meetings, around candidate filing, around election judge recruitment. And our office, I'm jumping the gun, but we're going to both central committee meetings tonight.
Excellent.
And so we
Great.
plan to continue all of that, and that wouldn't change because there's still some statutory requirements for central committees. And there's still this desire to make sure that everybody is involved in elections. We blend a little bit on the service that we do here, the service we do as election judges and elections. Our goal is to include everyone. And so this tags in, and some of this is required by law. And some of this just makes sense to run great elections, and we have no plans on changing any of that. Both the requirements under law and the additional outreach of trying to make these laws work in some capacity.
So I think the flow of information it's very free, and so there's no reason for partisan membership. So everybody has an opportunity to learn.
I'm
Just really quickly, I wanted to make sure that you guys online were hearing and tracking this conversation too. I'm notoriously bad at that, so I'm trying to make sure that we cover it.
Yeah, no, I'm getting everything.
Same.
Perfect.
I'm not hearing a lot of pushback to this proposal. I don't know if there are folks that have concerns or feel differently than the conversation that we've been having, but where we're at in my sort of perspective of this conversation is that we're all seem to be in agreement. And that if we wanted to, we could entertain a motion, but I want to keep the space open if people have other perspectives they want to share.
I do
Have
have
the
one.
central committees weighed in?
The question that came through from Travis was, have the central committees weighed in on this?
That was kind of my procedural question. It wasn't on the agenda that we were going to discuss this. This is something they should have been noticed about.
Well, as we go through this, I think it would make sense. We don't have a representative from the Democratic Central Committee here at all. I think it would make a lot of sense to discuss this and come forward with a proposal that we have in some capacity. Simple, written up like this. The change is not drastic. You would go, I was trying to pull our bylaws as I was having this discussion, forgive me, guys. You would eliminate the role that states that there's a Democratic and a Republican central committee position, and you would turn those to be a position that was a at-large position. How that process takes place and the specifics behind it are some of the other discussion that we really want to have with the commission. I don't know exactly what this looks like, and it could look a couple of different ways. This could be that we vacate those positions and go through an application. This could be that the people who are currently appointed are allowed to finish that term and reapply for that position. I don't want anything partisan to get in the interference of our role here of encouraging people to vote in elections. If we want to boil down the EAC's mission statement to one thing, it's encouraging people to vote in elections. And I'm always really strong that we meet that goal, and I don't want to get anything to weigh down too much. Knowing that this does happen, because we don't have representatives from the Democratic Central Committee here, it would feel a little bit better to pull this together, present this, and have this be that we're going to talk about bylaw changes again. Where we have them fully noticed, we have them out, and we've had this robust discussion. We finalize that to be the write-up. And I can work with you on that and make sure that that's nailed down and looks right. And then it can be, we have the same discussion, similar discussion that we just had next meeting, but not as robust, noting that most of the members have gone through and discussed it now. May have had an opportunity to discuss out. And then we can make sure that this is referenced. Voting on a change like this without Democratic Central Committee members here doesn't quite feel that.
Right.
Sure. That's my opinion. And I also feel like I dropped the ball a little bit on things like that.
Air or something?
Well, so we have both Todd, who is the Democratic Central Committee representative, and Marilyn Ryan, who is the alternate.
So you need that.
It would be nice to have one of them here because in the draft agenda that we sent to everybody, it just says bylaw changes. As we go through this robust discussion, it feels appropriate to make sure that they get to be a part in some capacity, not, boy, you should have been at that January meeting, what would you miss?
I also agree in the sense that I watched the October reporting and knew that the student conversation was coming, so I spent time thinking about that. I've been about this more than the last 8 months or things since we've been talking about it, so.
I think it makes sense to draw up the proposed changes, make sure everyone is properly noticed, and then readdress it in
I can make that happen. Here's what we're gonna do to make that happen. We'll catch it before election judge training. My schedule drastically changes in February. So we will have that out. We'll have these emails out to the committee in this capacity very shortly. You'll notice that after these meetings, I'm great about putting minutes out right away because I get very busy. And I don't want this to get caught just like the other one did, where I'm putting it together ahead of time. So my apologies, everybody. And I think that makes a lot of sense to approach in that capacity.
So we'll have old business next meeting that will be specifically identified as related to the central committee positions on the EAC.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for the conversation, everyone. More voting items. There were 2 other points here that we have under old business. Bradley, I don't think we have much to share about these EAC roles and responsibilities and priorities. Most of you probably are not aware. I said that I would do some work on this over the break. My spouse ended up in the hospital very unexpectedly and had to have an emergency open abdominal surgery in November. So I've been off radar for a little bit. Yeah, it was not great, very unexpected, but he's doing very well and recovering. But that threw a wrench in my calendar, I think, as you could imagine. So I have not done any of the things that I said I would do in those 2 capacities in advance of this meeting. I will commit to doing it between now and April. I just wanted to apologize for being a little off grid for the last couple of months. It's been an interesting end of 2023. Is there anything you had to add to those?
No, this is always my balance of walking a fine line. You get me going on elections, I'll talk your ear off, I will get going. And I'm always really trying to be a great resource, but not too pushy about the EAC. I understand this is a volunteer committee. I love it when we are making amazing things happen for elections. But I'm also really cognizant that between the November meeting and the January meeting, we have an election, a recount, holidays, and then we're here. And so as I look at this, that's one of the things that I'm constantly flagging is noting this calendar and this schedule. Hey, let's not give us a ton of action items after the November meeting. Let's plan those and make sure that we're tackling them in an appropriate way. So nope, didn't touch those at all. And I'm always willing to kind of jump in. I didn't send out that quick reminder being like, hey guys, looking for agenda items as I'm heading away on vacation. PS, has anybody done any work on this? I think that's something we could look and explore over the next weeks. One of the things I was really recommending is getting some meetings on the books. My calendar fills up so fast that if I know that it's coming and I've agreed to it, I'm doing it. And this is something we could do as a subcommittee meeting to say, hey, if you're interested in participating in this, let's come together. And I can pack out 2-3 hours of time and some prep time to make sure we have those materials together. And just kind of knowing ahead of time if we get a couple of them in the books. I got a few times in March that could work as we get all of our judge trainings.
So we'll circle back after this meeting, sort of revisiting the idea around getting some direction from the commissioners about like what their priorities are for elections, right? That was part of what we had talked about doing, Cameo and I dropped the ball. And then also sort of thinking like, when you started this board, there weren't a lot of like details, right? There weren't a lot of like expectations that were outlined or resources. And so starting to think, as Bradley had mentioned earlier, many of us are sort of have done a few years now. We have maybe a little bit more knowledge than we did at the beginning. One of the things I'd love to see us do is put together like a board packet, essentially like a board binder. What happens when you join this board? What should you know? What resources should you have? So those were sort of the two things that I put on the agenda for last time that fell off of my to-do list. So if it's something that you're interested in being involved in, we'll follow up with an email. Bradley, you can help me do this, right? And we can set up some time in his calendar in March to start moving those pieces forward. That sound acceptable?
Yeah.
Thanks for your understanding. It's wild.
We could even do an EAC, election judge training, and then turn that right into a meeting. I love that.
Like that sounds not something I
We're
want to
getting
do.
so many different trainings that I'm like, that's what my big calendar is around. Hey,
Yeah.
figuring out our different trainings and making sure we get them.
So, sorry,
go
right for me. I was gonna say, so the last point we had was an ad hoc working group that facilitated signage. That was the day I ended up in the emergency room with my spouse. That's why I wasn't here. So, do you want to fill us in on how that went? How the ad hoc group working? Remember we talked about signage and like, what do we call this building and that building and making sure people get into the right spots. So fill us in.
Yeah, it was building upon what we had kind of discussed in the first meeting. These are a list of our different signs. This is a list of areas that I can feel like we're going to run into issues on. The hardest part that we have is trying to help people understand where to go here. It was very fortunate we were able to schedule about an hour of time on election day. And what we see is that on election day, it was actually a little easier to find where to go because of the number of people. How many of you made it to the right room today?
I did.
This method of putting out signage has been one of our biggest successes. So we've really been discussing what is working. And when we brought this forward, we really utilized a lot of different architectural language, wayfinding signs, signs for building labels. We worked closely with our teams here because technically we've always referred to this building as the election center and the other building as the elections office. Who knows that language? Nobody but us. Labeling those buildings may not solve the problem of where voters need to go on the specific day. One of the big things we discussed was the language around election center, how often that had been used, and voting. Where we came to for a great discussion was we know the signs we need. We did a really good job on our internal signage. So when you get into the building, you can see that your ballot seating is upstairs. Your ballot opening is downstairs. Your voter services is here. We did some good work on these doors are now exit only. And we know we need something posted permanently on those doors that state, please come to the other entrance. We're gonna run into the same issue we have here where there are meetings taking place in the large building and voter services in a smaller location. One of the big things that our communication team said is, don't try and get people to figure out the difference between the election center and the elections office. Give them a sign that shows them where to go. And you've seen me mirror this language quite a bit over the last few months. Go to the south room of the dark green building. Where? At the election center. This whole place can be our election center. There's so much advertising around the election center that it becomes hard for us to change that language. But trying to dedicate a building to being that became a lot harder. What's also fun that those of you who are here got to see, other groups are starting to utilize this building. This building is the Emergency Command Center, Auxiliary Emergency Command Center, as well as Election Center. If you ask Adrian what this building is, she'll tell you it's the dark green building. That sort of language was really helpful for us. And where we're at now is we've gone through, we had that plan, we really looked at it and we battled a little bit on what do you call it? How do I get this figured out? Our communications team met, I think Kathy was saying that right here. I think that was your big thing. Don't call it that. They don't know. Say vote here.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's boiled down to. Enter here, voters, enter here. Because as we gain some continuity, everybody's showing up at the north end of this building. And in the parking lot, there is a election sign with an arrow that says enter here. And then one on our building door. Now, we do need some signage for our doors. We do need a little bit of labeling. Some of this required by law. You have to have your buildings noticed. You have to have them with lock boxes, things for the fire station. But we don't, as our team, love changing signs every single day. People will walk by the signs regardless of how many times you change those signs. But that gives us the most flexibility. Where we're at on this project are, we heard everybody's viewpoint. You've noticed that our signs outside on the road say all voter services are in the gray building, you know? We're not trying to get people to understand the difference between an office and a center. I think that's a lost cause. Now, what's the next steps? I want uniform signage. And we're gonna have a meeting this week, later this week, with the Office of Emergency Management, Communications Department, everything that we went through. A lot of this is the signs that I know that I need are main entrance. I need something that says that that's the main entrance. I know I need exit only. Giant banners that say election center haven't proven effective. Having people point to where you go is very effective. And when we hit election day, we have that capacity. And in the other times, we're doing a pretty good job of getting people to where they need to be. So that's where that sign plan has gone. And I'll have a little bit more information tomorrow, but I've really dropped this idea that we're gonna label that building and we're gonna make it say election center on this corner, the other corner, this corner. We're gonna make the other one say elections office. We're gonna have signs that point you to those directions. That's a lot of money on something that really comes up, and the day it comes up, we've got a parking director. And they're telling you park here and go into that building. On the other days, now is where it becomes the most challenging. Some of this will be continuity and some of this will be putting out the sign that says enter here. So that's really what we're looking for, and I'll have a lot more information next week. But we love having people come and get to see it. I thought it was awesome to see it all happening. And then I was so surprised because with all of our parking directors, with so many people coming to the building, that's not where it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard when there's nobody here and you're like, where's that EAC meeting?
Hey, that sign.
The sign out in the lot, we say EAC meeting right in here.
So I just want to add, I have colorblind people in my family, and if you're gonna have trouble with green and gray. So
I'd asked this at the last meeting.
Oh, that's right. We were gonna,
Remember?
we have a colorblind person too.
Yeah, because my spouse can't see green.
And then I love the cardinal directions, but you'd be amazed at how many people don't know which way south is. And so maybe, I mean, I think a beautiful, weather vane that says south is this way and north is that way, but that would be our work and not signage.
Well, and we talked about that too, Cam, because he told me with the south door and I was like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I know
And
where
this
they are.
building, which way is it?
It's amazing to me, especially with the slanty streets in the river. It's hard to.
And it's really interesting because if you think about it from the public viewpoint, you're gonna use this door, that door, or those doors. And so what we have is north, west, southwest, and east. I wonder if we could just label the doors.
Remember we talked about putting like a giant
Door
light
number
to
two,
north
door number
and
three.
then over the north doors and
Yep.
west.
People don't know directions at all.
Yeah, because I was like, if this door was labeled 1, 2, 3, north, south, come in the south door and it's labeled, we're not gonna win this no matter what. I'm trying to be really honest. What we're trying to do is come up with a good plan. This is perfect for what we're looking at.
Can we
Dark
just say
and
green
light.
building, like have a sign that says green building for our friends who can't.
For the can't see
the
green,
color.
just paint on there that it's green.
What does green look like to
GR?
people who can't see it?
It's
Gray or
yeah,
red,
right.
I can't tell the difference, it depends on.
So
It
it
depends on the.
would
south.
look the same as
How about the big building?
The big building.
Yeah,
I still think polling place on the end of this,
Yeah.
or the polling place, but
Vote here.
Yeah.
And I see that like election center can become vote here. I just haven't, we're getting our money's worth out of that dang shit.
Pirate and start all over again.
Well, as we hit this, that's exactly what we go to. Vote here. And so you want to know what's amazing? There's voter entrance signs by the door. They don't work. But we can continue all of that. And I think some of the big aspects to look at are, do we number the doors? How do we label these buildings? Guess what? We can't repaint them. After just having completed painting them, that is not in the radar right now. I tried to have two vastly different colors.
Stripes. Can you paint stripes on them?
I'm like, we might be able to do that.
But big, like big, the big building. I mean, I know that's like not real sexy, but
People can generally.
You would
tell
know
the
which
difference
one it
between
is.
big and small.
Look at
That
the-
one's small, so.
No, they can't. They're gonna think that every building is big. Or every
Well-
building is small.
And it might be G1 is the door. And that's how you know where to go. Because also the Office of Emergency Management needs this as well. Enter in door G1. Enter in door G2. When I came here, I had like 3 people try and follow me in here. And I was like, you're gonna go right through that door to get to where you need to go. So it does impact a lot of other groups.
door labeling is a good idea. I'm thinking back, my background in working in the public school system, room and door labeling is huge.
Make it big enough
For
people can see
safety
it.
purposes. So,
like an airport, you know, where you have like
Gate, one
door.
I like the door labels in some capacity and
And
it
if you
could
want to
be.
use your cardinal direction, fine, but if you put like that, this is W1,
Mhm.
E1, or whatever you want to do.
And I love it because as I'm thinking this through, G1 for green one, or maybe for gray one.
Gray one,
Just like, we'll nail that one down. I think that the big takeaways are, no, naming the buildings and expecting people to learn the names is not gonna work. Bigger, broader process, and that this is the campus, the whole place is where you come. We'll still have voter entrance, voter exit, we still have the county center banners, we have elections office banners we can put up. But I think that as we look at what we do for how you find where you go, I'm gonna kick this right over to Adrian.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna say, I've got all kinds of ideas, but before I start plugging this up, do you have anything you're looking for? And if not, I mean, it could be E123 for East 123.
So if you're gonna label doors, I'm just saying, it would be easier if they're either A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And even the ones on the other building are consecutive, so you remember one, you don't like, oh, was it G1 or was it F1?
Fair, good point.
One or the other, and then all the doors are just consecutive.
It was really nice to see the amount that these viewpoints agreed with our communications department. This is not my forte. And it is a incredibly important part of being here to serve voters, making it easy for people to know where to go. It's never gonna be easy when you show up once every 2, once every 4 years. But doing what we can. And I think that that's that big aspect. So looking for our signage about naming buildings based off of color or size. And then potentially, I'm like, we could stripe that gray building. That's something we can do. What I can't do is say, we're gonna paint that neon orange because we just completed a painting that we're all paying for. Colors or size.
And you're gonna follow up about that.
I'd say don't do the.
Yeah, question about, how people with different visual needs will see them differently. Make sure you don't wanna,
You'll
it's something
notice.
like 17% of males.
And you'll notice that when our services were here, it was the dark green building. I was told this building was black.
Yeah.
I was told a lot of different things, and we're doing what we can to help get that through. So we're looking at labeling them, double checking colorblind, size of the building, labels over the doors, and keeping them consecutive.
And big enough over the doors. I like that. You could see it like when you're
Driving by.
in the parking lot.
Yeah, not mailbox letters.
Yeah.
I mean, like the 120 is good.
Yeah, we can't get much bigger than
Yeah,
that
that's
140
perfect.
according to like sign.
No, but that's good. We just don't, I think that we're saying we don't want like a little.
Yeah.
You have to get out and come look at what the hours are.
Right.
We were gearing up for our after hours ballot Dropbox discussion. That's a whole different side, but signage to keep us back on track.
Yeah.
Remember when we said this would fly
No,
right
it's
through?
not going to.
On the signage, we had some great discussions and we are following up this week to kind of confirm that you guys will get that update. What we'll do is we'll get out our meeting agenda minutes, we'll get out our bylaw changes, and we'll get out the signage update, and I'll make that all happen next week.
So was it meant that you can't turn into the parking lot from that end of it? Because when I came in here on election day, there was a sawhorse out there.
Yep.
And I'm like, I can't turn anywhere else. I'm driving around the sawhorse. Sorry about it, but I don't know.
It is done that way on election day because of the left-hand turns blocking the traffic entering and exiting. We eliminated all left-hand turns. And here's what happens. Nothing. The
People
city,
drive-
yeah, the city was like, yo, you
But
don't
you
need to
can't-
ask for my permission to do that. Here are signs. Put them up whenever you want. Good luck.
I come in on Russell, and then I can't turn into the building if there's no left turns. It's not really a feasible thing to say you can't turn left in here.
If you come off of Russell Street, like this way,
Yeah, so I came in Russell, turned left at the light, and tried to turn in the
From
parking
Wyoming.
lot, and my road was blocked to get into the parking lot.
Yeah, to make.
It
a
was
right
set up
off
so the
Wyoming.
only way you could get into the parking lot is to turn right off of Russell if you're going.
Mhm.
yeah.
And I went, that's dumb, so I drove around.
And the idea being that we can direct you to the traffic circle nearby. The left turns out of the lot are what will break us. As you left turn out of the lot, you will block up and back up the traffic to the point where cars cannot enter or exit a parking space. This is an amazing location. This is the best elections office in the whole state of Montana. But it is not the Metro Center arena. And the parking does not match that. And it's a big challenge. As we hit next year, we'll be offering a parking ride from McCormick Park. When we hit our federal election cycles, we'll continue forward with what we did before. Don't drop off a ballot here, go to McCormick Park. There's a park and ride available from McCormick Park. Last time we had a federal election, we coordinated with the university as well. We need to park and ride for our staff as well as voters. We will fill the parking lot with just our staff. And so the left-hand turns have been a nightmare, and it's been one of the biggest challenges for us. Also, remember, we used to have that entrance right at the corner of Russell when it was brand new. We ran a drive-through ballot drop-off here. I'm trying to be loud enough to make sure I'm catching you all online too. We ran a drive-through ballot drop-off here in 2020 for the first and only time. We literally, from the drive-through traffic, blocked the entire parking lot. People could not leave to let new cars get in, and new cars could not get in to allow space for other cars to leave. So traffic on election day has become a very large portion of what we do. And with that, yeah, I loved it. When they told me I could put up those signs whenever I wanted, they were like, "It won't do anything." We did have somebody get pulled over for making a left-hand turn and crossing a double yellow. So we're always working on that. We're always trying to coordinate that. And when we hit the big election, the big election this year, we will talk about, please make sure you check your polling location. Make sure you're aware of the drop locations. And if you do need to come here, consider park and ride from McCormick Park, bike, walk, or bus. Sorry, guys, I don't want to go too far down the road, but I did want to hit the next, I did want to hit the next items here and cover them because there are a few of the bigger items I had to go through. Let me pull up the stop clock here. 1:14. Redistricting. We just yesterday completed our redistricting practice. In order to get redistricting finalized in the voter database, it took our GIS department, myself, Nathan, the state library, their GIS department, the state library does mapping, as well as a specific staff from the Secretary of State. We input all of our data, we ran it through, and we had about 400 addresses that did not match. We worked on all of that, and the next day that we were able to complete that update was yesterday. This got bumped multiple times to coordinate all of the different groups. Every voter in Missoula County has been redistricted. Yay! It's been a big process, and now I started at 8 o'clock this morning, and I still do not have my list of voter confirmation cards from the system. We will be mailing out 79,000 voter confirmation cards to voters. On these cards, we're going to do a little bit of outreach with everybody. And so as we go through, I'm working actively right now with our print vendor, our mailing vendor, and our communications team so that we can talk to voters about how to read their voter confirmation card. There are two critical pieces of information on here. The red underlined, which is your polling location. This will be the location in a polling place election that you go to vote. June and November, this will be your voting location. The other critical portion on here is going to be whether or not you're on the absentee list. This is going to tell you whether or not you need to go to that voting location in June and November. We're going to work really hard to get those out. I expect this to take about a week to a week and a half with our vendors to get them printed and mailed. We'll do a series of press releases mirroring the ones that went out from the Secretary of State's office 3 or 4 months ago stating that you will be getting a voter confirmation card. This is not the only thing we're going to do. As we get closer to election day, there's two main areas that this is really going to impact people. Precinct committee men and women. So if you want to run as a precinct committee man or woman, you need to live in that precinct. We've got a map on our webpage. We've had that map available for quite some time where you can put in your address and see your precinct. The other area that it becomes really important for is for polling place voters on election day. And that's that second portion that I've included here. We're always working on this, always trying to make sure we get the best information out. You'll notice as you look at that handout, it's not fully updated. This is something I wanted to show you guys for this election. The map is not correct. As we look at those different mailings, we will be sending what's referred to as a quad folded self mailer. It folds 4 times onto itself and mails out with a tab. Twice onto itself, yep. And it becomes a letter size. This is a great cost savings for our county. As you open that up, it's going to tell you how to get here. It's going to tell you where your polling location is, that you are a polling place voter. So this will go specifically to our polling place voters to say your new polling location is the library, is my example from this. In that, it also includes an absentee ballot request form. The biggest question we had in 2022 was, where is my ballot? After running an all-mail election for every election in 2020 and 2021, voters expected to see their ballot in the mail. This is how we're going to notify voters that you will not get a ballot in the mail. This is where you will go to vote. And should you have been mistaken and you want one, here's your prepaid postage mailer to be able to request that ballot. I had discussed earlier a plan of also signing the polling places with a similar sign and a map that you could grab to direct you to the new polling place. The issue with this is not everybody who used to vote at Russell School will vote at the admin building. Some will be voting at the former Cold Spring School. The other portion of outreach we're going to do is around the My Voter page, which lists your polling location as well as new pictures. So when you go to a relocated polling place, one that does not exist anymore, like Russell School, you will see a plastic sign that says this polling location has been relocated with information of how to check My Voter page or call our office. That way, no voter accidentally gets directed to the wrong polling location. So we'll be doing multiple steps of the outreach. First one coming up is our voter confirmation card slated to go out by the end of the month. Then, while we're in the middle of our school election, we'll be reaching out to voters about polling places for the June. And then at those polling places, should you have missed all of this, you'll be greeted with a sign that sits there and it tells you this location's been relocated. It's got a phone number you can call. It's got a QR code in the webpage to be able to go and look up where you go to vote. That's our plan on polling place outreach as well as redistricting. They kind of overlap quite a bit. I love that question because I was like, yes, I have a lot.
So I was wondering, I've worked in the Hellgate school last time. And all these people come in with these ratty cards that have been in their wallets. So I don't know if this is too late to change, but I just wondered if we can put the date on it so they know this is the most recent version of it. Like this is the 2023 redistricting or something. Just put the date on. That's just the year and then please throw it on.
I don't know if I can through that in. Because this comes out of the Secretary of State's data, so it's the layout of this. The things that I can change are, is this your House, Senate, Community Council, whatever.
Yeah. I just think it'd be great to put the year because I don't remember if it's 2010 or 2023.
PSA on the website or the Facebook page, please date your new voter card.
We can definitely get that side with our outreach. Let me check.
It's a good suggestion.
I just, yeah, and see, here's the hard part. In the new, I love that. As we know, it doesn't say here anyway.
Yeah, because they have them for 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah, mine's very old.
Yeah.
Let me add that because we're getting our outreach routes very shortly. We just tried to pull them today. It's been taking a full day just to pull that file out. I'm really cautious about trying to amend it and delay it longer. Also, if I can add something to this right now, I will. I'm like, we can turn around and live, so it will change everything on all of the cards before they go out. I will check that today. And just see what those opportunities are. We will definitely cover it. So for this, I just need to plug in that the outreach needs to talk about. Make sure that you update this. Put new in your phone, in the phone right there. Get rid of your old one. Susan?
Example, it didn't seem like for maybe still, but if people are active, I think that's another thing that people don't really understand. They don't vote for a certain number of elections that they're no longer registered to vote. Do we have some way to send this type of information out to people and have a bit of information on here? Let them know what they're even registered.
So we don't have the ability to do a blanket mailer to everybody that's not active and registered to vote. We do. We just don't have the budget to send out a countywide mailer to everybody to say, I'm not certain if you're registered. The way that the database program is. Well,
It says.
for inactive voters.
Right,
Inactive voters aren't included in the list that polls for these cards.
that's what I'm saying. Can we send them?
They will be a polling place voter because you cannot be an inactive mail ballot voter. So they will receive this second mailing, and this polling place mailer will state, you are a polling place voter, you should be voting at this school. And then if they go in here, they can sign up to get an absentee ballot. So the second mailer should help cover those voters, which is different than they're just not registered at all. That's what I thought you were talking about, like blanket mailing everybody who may be registered, who may not be registered.
So the inactive voters, though, they're fine to just vote.
They won't get a ballot in the mail. by
Right,
law.
right, but
They can go to that polling place or they can update their information, and when they request that, they'll become an active voter and they'll get their ballot in the mail until their information changes. So they'll get caught in mailing number 2. And it's basically like, if you think you should have gotten an updated voter registration card, go to my voter page, look up your information and reach out to our office. Because that tends to be the big thing. Did you think you were getting a ballot for this election? Well, you might live in the county.
And the different central committees and student groups and this office have a pretty extreme get out the vote campaign that goes on before every election to remind people to check your registration and your voter status and go update.
The Secretary of State's doing a ton. Mindful of everybody's time. We just hit 4:30. And you give me a chance to talk about elections. We're gonna have a quick agenda. Yeah, right. I wanted to talk about judge training and recruitment. I wanted to do a quick update because we were trying something really unique this year. You'll notice that before the November meeting, we talked about, before the October, we talked about preparing some election judge recruitment and training materials. You saw a few emails come out about election judge recruitment and training materials, but you never saw a large push from the EAC around our Give a Day for Democracy campaign. Here's where we're at in election judge recruitment and why. We had over 600 people on our list as trained election judges or interested in serving in the 2024 election cycle. We started with very focused outreach to those individuals. We are now entering into Give a Day for Democracy. I worked hard with our communications department on updating that list. Our method in the past had been casting very wide net. We were doing a lot of effort towards casting a wide net, but not catching a lot of fish. What we've done is we mailed those who expressed their interest, and now I've started doing targeted outreach with groups from the Give a Day for Democracy campaign that have been exceptionally fruitful in the past. We have just shy of 400 people signed up to serve as election judges. Today, as of right now. We will need 600. So we're 2/3 of the way there. We haven't done a press release around this yet. I have an email out to Nick Christian. He runs Talkback KGBO and a few other groups. And I was like, let's discuss this. Then we started reaching out to groups that work in parallel. Today, we're presenting to our central committees about election judge recruitment and training. And then we're working with the other groups, these groups like League of Women Voters, Montpert, Forward Montana, Pachyderm, all of these other groups that are out there that work in parallel, encourage people to vote. We're hitting groups like Clearwater Credit Union is amazing. They offer their staff paid time off at their rate to volunteer for our office to serve. We're reaching out to the city. The city has a volunteer program that mirrors that. And we're flagging from that through. I want to hit the university. I'd love to get younger demographics involved in election judges. I know when I started being at the university, I was the outlier. I love it when our community looks like the people serving them and vice versa. So we haven't done a large push to you all about needing extra assistance because we wanted to see where this would go. 2/3 of the way there with one outreach push, I feel like we're doing great. I'm presenting to the Kiwanis Club on Thursday. We've got central committees tonight. Tomorrow, I think we're following up with the city. So we're hitting our big groups. What I can use from you all is a review of that document, and I will send this out again, same email. And what I need is Bradley, this is the group you should reach out to, and I know that. Not that I want to cover every single group in this list that we've done in the past, but you definitely, I don't see you as having reached out to this group. You should reach out to them, and the person you want to talk to is Jack. And then we'll get that connection. It's as quick and easy. I have the scripts. I have the materials here. I want you guys to grab hard copies if you're here. We'll email them again. If not, it's very simple. It is serving as an election judge is great, rewarding work, and we'd like to partner you up with the elections office so we can promote this. There is an ambassador script, the 100-word, what I call our elevator pitch. And then there's the flyer you can give to an interested group. My big goal is not to miss a large group that's going to be critically important. We haven't even yet said that we need hundreds of election judges press release, which is almost guaranteed to get us hundreds of signups right away. My goal is not to recruit an incredible number more people than we need to serve. In the past, we've taken some heat about people being trained and not serving. And we always want to make sure that there's a surplus so that people can be sick or be out. But I don't want to recruit 800 people because I need 600. I want to get 650 because I need 600.
So how many did you send that first email out to?
About 600.
So I mean, I'm just gonna say, I think you should send it again and say, we need 200 more. Please sign up by the end of the week. Because I think that came out right around the holidays. So. I mean, and if
I
you don't
haven't
give
signed
people
up
a
yet.
and it's just that, it's like, it was off my radar and now it's on my mind, so.
I'm gonna blanket it to everybody, because that's an easier list for us
Yeah.
to send it to than to try and
If
pull
you
people off.
already did, thank you,
Yeah,
and if you haven't.
We
signed up,
appreciate this. We still need this. We're about to start our large scale public outreach. Please share this with your friends and family and make sure you sign up. Well, the availability is still great. We have 3 classes full.
Awesome.
I love it. It feels great. One of the big things I don't want to do is I don't want to create a false sense of pressure. I want to make sure we're encouraging people whom we know are very likely to serve. This list is our best. And then I want to make sure that we're not missing good groups. And I'm like, that's where I really need that assistance as we go through that list. The number of groups that I don't have a connection with is far, far more than the ones I do. I will be sending that out with the bylaws, with the other items next week, so that we can have our meeting minutes, our bylaw changes, all of that locked in. And then the way I'd love to go about this is call me. I'll walk you through it again. Then we can go through that, we can get signed up, and you can say, look, I got this open and I have some questions. And I'll say, I'm jumping in. And Kathy, yes, I want to hear about Group C. Let's figure them out. Let's get them plugged in and let's make sure we get that invite out. I'm even building a few example emails together so that it can be really easy. And I'm doing them from the recruitments that we just made to Clearwater, from the recruitments we just made to the city. So you can see exactly what we sent. Clearwater comes from Jeff Badenoch, who used to serve as chair of the advisory committee. He serves on their board at Clearwater. And it was, Jeff, I'm interested in recruiting people from Clearwater. Can you make an introduction? Jeff slaps out an email to those people and says, you guys should meet Bradley. And now we have a meeting on the calendar for the 22nd to present to Clearwater. That's the assistance that I need from you guys. I don't need you to feel comfortable making a huge pitch. What I need to know is you're missing all the DNRC. I don't think we've ever done outreach with the DNRC. And you know what? That might be a great time and a great partner to hit. Those are the sort of things where, yeah, let me know that person to get in touch with, and then let's maximize that. Let's make sure we're really hitting it to the best of our ability, not just casting a wide net. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mhm.
Other questions?
Just to make sure I understand. We don't need to be talking to anybody. So that script isn't really for us.
It's a great example of what I'm going to say.
Oh.
If you know these groups really well, when we talk about it and you say, hey, I want to reach out to, I'm presenting at the Clinton Community Council later this week.
This week.
I think next week.
Okay.
But like, that's an example. Clinton Community Council, community councils. I've had other people from the EAC do that outreach directly to those groups because they felt comfortable. It's about what you guys feel comfortable with. I know this inside and out, and it's really easy for me to walk that across the finish line. The hard part is, who do I talk to at the DNRC? Who do I talk to at the university? I'm pointing at both of you, D'Artagnan. But getting that connection and getting that introduction, and that time frame is hitting us quick. I'll get that other email out this week. Hey, in case you missed it, we wanted to make sure that you expressed interest or served in the past. Wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to get the best ability to find a class that works for you. We'll be starting our other outreach even more so in a week or two. So then that comes back out to everybody, not right around the holidays. It was the 19th of December that it went. So we really planned on that and tried to wait to give it time. I didn't think of the second email. I love that idea.
I made 4 phone calls yesterday and got 4 people.
Good.
Yep. Those individual
All of my
outreach is great.
fundraising days, the way you get people to give is to ask them personally.
Yep.
Not a big group, not a mailer, nothing. Just, I call you up and I say,
Personally, if.
I've done this for years. You think it was fun too.
Mhm.
I'm serious.
And it is fun. I'm like, I got into all of this work from being recruited and serving as an election judge. This is the epitome of public service. And then I'm like, you'll hear me refer to it multiple times as you all sign up and go through training this spring as a requirement of service on the EAC, that this is paid public service. It's paid minimum wage, so it's definitely public service. Nobody's doing it to get rich, but this is an amazing way to give back to the community. With that in mind, mindful of time, I wanted to jump on to new business and make sure that we could wrap up everyone. You want me to take it?
Yeah, I was about to direct you there, but you,
Expiring terms. 4 terms for members were expiring during this. 4 terms were expiring for members in January 31st of 2024. We reached out individually to each of those members and asked, would you like to continue serving on this term? We're doing something right because all 4 of you said yes, you would like to continue serving on this term. We were working really hard to cover this because our commissioner's office is still required to do outreach around vacant terms. But what they can do is transparent outreach. The commission has a propensity to continuing continuity and selecting people whom have already been serving. All of the existing members with expiring terms have reapplied, and the position will be open if you too would like to apply. So it doesn't create a false sense of hope that somebody sees this, applies, and feels like I'm definitely going to be serving on this election advisory committee. With 4 people who presented that they are interested, I can't speak for the commission, but it's very likely that we reappoint all 4 positions. So our terms that would be expiring on the 31st have all had the request to be reappointed. After we close that period, because we need to advertise for a month, we can then go forward with, will the commission be interested in selecting any interviews? I know better than to put words in elected officials' mouths, but that's how the process goes. So we've got 4 terms expiring, 4 people requesting to go forward. I'm excited to continue forward with some continuity, which is usually the plan. We'll leave it there. Which leads us to electing new officers. The first meeting after February 1st, we will need to elect new officers. So I wanted to bring it up during this. And I wanted to state that this tags really well into some of the upcoming projects about roles, responsibilities, what that does. And when we come together in our April meeting, we will need to take nominations for officers, and our officers are chair, vice chair. I serve as the secretary.
Vice chair.
Travis.
Sorry, Travis.
I had to wait to see if you were unmuting to say that, Travis. I'm sorry.
Why does it say he's a guest?
Everybody online's a guest.
He doesn't work for the county, so he's,
Because their canyon didn't have,
I bet it says guest on his, I just can't see it.
oh, maybe.
It might have to do with logging into.
Yeah, you got a team
Yeah.
account somewhere.
Cause I thought, God,
Universe.
that kid's,
Yeah.
that guy's the vice
Yeah.
chair. How can he be a guest?
We're all guests here.
So I assume we're all supposed to take the election judge training.
So election judge training from everybody in here. There's a couple of steps. I got a great opportunity to talk with D'Artagnan about this. Yes, I have the handouts for you all as well. Taking basic election judge training is that minimum requirement. You've got 2 things that you need to do to serve on the election advisory committee. And it is taking that board's video and quiz, and then signing up and taking election judge training. I really appreciate that all of the election advisory committee members have taken election judge training, Because the laws are confusing, the laws change every year, and then they go through a court process where they are likely to change again. We are currently pending Supreme Court decisions on things like voter ID and same-day voter registration. I'm also preparing and recruiting election judges, and we have training scheduled, and we might not have a Supreme Court decision. We will train on the laws as they currently stand, and we will update training as necessary. That's the same thing we did in the last cycle. And the changes took place during our training, and so half of our training had the updated information, half didn't. Unfortunately, that's the nature with the election law, and the way that our training goes forward. I'd love it to give everybody a sign-up card that you can take with you. You can sign up through that link, and then you can give it to a friend. And then we can have everybody come through and have that information, that same knowledge of information. There are times that I will reference things from election judge training, just expecting you all to know what that means. And that's really the big goal, is to know and understand a bit about what we do. If you have the time and availability, the next step in that is serving as an aide or assistant and helping out with those processes of voter signature verification, registering voters on election day. Some of my best aides and assistants have been people who were involved in this process. When Denver was serving here, he had served as election aide just to see what it was like to register voters. I do not expect any of you on this volunteer board to take that step, but if you want to, I'm happy to help show you what that means. So, let me make sure that I get those to everybody.
It was just me for walking class.
Oh, as he was like, I'm heading out, I've got meetings tonight. So that's it for election of new officers and expiring terms. I got you guys about 15 minutes over. You want to just knock out these last few?
Few minutes over, aren't we?
Maybe we can get 15 minutes under.
We've changed these to 5 o'clock because they never ended at 4:30. Thank you all.
Yeah, I was like, no, we're.
So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
yep. It used to be 3 to 4:30 and we never finished on time.
Is there anything else you wanted us to talk about in preparation for the April meeting? So we'll have nominations in April and then elections in July.
We usually have done nominations and elections at the same time, and that usually is what do you think, Kathy? You up for it? Great. Well, then I nominate Kathy. Yep. And I mean, you've seen, some of our new members have seen, my take for this is to be productive, do great work, but not bog us so far down in the minutia of Robert's Rules of Orders that we get lost, but that we can still have a motion, take a vote, and do good work.
Okay, thank you. Point of clarity, just to make sure that people know what we're supposed to do when we come in April. So think about it if you want to serve in an officer role. Comments from committee members?
I'm not gonna wait till the.
I've been holding on to it for 2 hours.
Online, any comments as well?
Nope, none for me.
The last point that I have is establishment of our next meeting date, which is April 9th.
April 9th at 3 p.m. April 9th, we'll probably be doing it, we'll be on this campus. We'll either be here or in the conference room next door.
You'll sign for us, right?
We will have a fantastic sign for side. Bless.
I did get an email of the dates for the year, right?
So you likely did. Those meeting invites are very unique. We have some brand new people in scheduling for our county commissioners. You may not see that meeting invite anymore.
Oh, yeah.
You will get them,
For the, yeah.
you'll get them from me, and this time I know you got one from the new representative for the Board of County Commissioners. I know that went out to everybody on the EAC. Normally that will go just to the commissioners and we will update a little bit more. If they're in there, amazing, we'll always talk about establishment. You'll always get agenda requests from me.
So these are actual dates or?
Those are the actual dates, and then I will do another follow-up, like that doesn't exist for you all. That is very unlikely to happen in 2025. Just because as we go through this, that's not the normal way that they do invites. They normally do it just for the commissioners and then have me send that out. We're at adjournment.
That's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
I.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you.
Thank you all. I really appreciate it. Bye, guys.